streets or networks of streets, particularly town centres and high streets. This may explain why I was unable to drive into the high street to get from one end of the town to the other yesterday. This will enable active travel, but also social distancing in places where people are likely to gather. New bullet point. Providing additional cycle parking facilities at key locations, such as outside stations and in high streets, to accommodate an increase in cycling. For example, by repurposing parking bays to accommodate cycle racks. Next bullet point. Changes to junction design. Changes to junction design. How are they... well, no, they do seem to be actually doing at least some of these things. You may wonder how on earth it's possible. Changes to junction design, particularly when the economy is probably going to be one of the greatest economic crises in the history of the world. Anyhow, changes to junction design to accommodate more cyclists. For example, extending advanced stop lines at traffic lights to the maximum permitted depth of 7.5 metres, where possible. Next bullet point, whole route approaches to create corridors for buses, cycles, and access only on key routes into town and city centres. Next bullet point, modal filters, also known as filtered permeability. I mean, it's gobbledygook, isn't it? Modal filters, filtered permeability. Colon. Closing roads to motor traffic. Closing roads to motor traffic. Okay? So actually physically preventing people from driving on the roads. Well, that's what seemed to happen to me in the high street yesterday. The road was closed to my car. All cars. For example, by using planters or large barriers. Often used in residential areas, this can create neighbourhoods that are low traffic or traffic free. So they're changing people's neighbourhoods, creating a more pleasant environment, in whose opinion, and who have we been consulted, that encourages people to walk and cycle and improving safety. These people, they use words, they use these happy words, these happy clappy words like green, safety, health, fitness. Do you really think it has anything to do with do you think they seriously are really interested in any of those things? Identifying and bringing forward, this is the last bullet point in this section, identifying and bringing forward permanent schemes, already planned, lo and behold, this has all been planned. Well, it must have all been planned because it can't suddenly have come out of nowhere. For example, schemes under local cycling and walking infrastructure plans that can be constructed relatively quickly. Infrastructure. I mean, this town doesn't seem to have a great deal of infrastructure, not left. So there aren't enough roads. There's nowhere to... honestly. Okay, all these measures can be introduced temporarily. When are they going to withdraw these temporary measures? All these measures can be introduced temporarily, either in isolation or as a combined package of measures. Some interventions, including new lightly segregated cycle lanes, will not require traffic regulation orders, TROs. Others will require TROs, of which there are different types. The main ones are permanent. Did you know? So, this process includes prior consultation. Who's consulted? Prior consultation on the proposed scheme design, a 21-day notice period for statutory consultees and others who can log objections. There can be a public inquiry in some circumstances. They doesn't tell us who the statutory consultees are. They don't consult us. No one ever consults me about anything. Or they might send sometimes when there's some plan, they might send a circular piece of paper through people's letterboxes and give you like 2 lines to say what you think about it, so that you can then send it back to your MP, and then it will probably happen anyway, whatever you say in your objection. But they can say, well, we consulted people, so we know what they... and we decided to do it after having consulted them. So, then experimental, this is the second type of traffic regulation order. These are used to trial schemes that may then be made permanent. Authorities may put in place monitoring arrangements. Monitoring. Big Brother is watching you. And carry out ongoing consultation once the measure is built. Although the initial implementation period can be quick, the need for extra monitoring and consultation afterwards makes them a more onerous process overall. Temporary. These can be in place for up to 18 months. I might say that after something's been in place for 18 months, then people will forget that it's temporary, and might it possibly just stay there without ever being taken away again? Or will the temporary TRO be renewed so that it's then 36 months? So it's been there for 3 years. Just a question. There is a 7-day notice period prior to making the TRO and a 14-day notification requirement after it is made, plus publicity requirements. These are most suitable for putting in place temporary measures and road closures. The department's temporary guidance on making TROs should be consulted for help in making orders during the COVID-19 crisis. So there are those bullet points. We're nearly at the end. Traffic signs may be needed to inform pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers of changes to road layouts. They don't ask us, do they? Would you like the road layouts of your town to be changed? They simply don't. Excuse me. Sorry, I just sneezed. You're not going to get COVID-19 from me sneezing. You're not. Traffic signs may be needed to inform pedestrians, cyclists and drivers of changes to road layouts. Or COVID-19 recovery new world related. Particularly where temporary widening is in place. They're temporarily going to widen the roads, means they're going to then make them narrower again. Really? They're going to widen the roads and then narrow them? Doesn't seem to me... That's very strange. Advice on using existing signing and some new temporary designs will be published alongside this guidance. These are covered by the provisions of the Traffic Signs Regulations and General Directions 2016 and, as such, do not need special signs authorization from the department. Authorities should monitor and evaluate any temporary measures they install with a view to making them permanent. There we are. Authorities should monitor and evaluate any temporary measures they install with a view to making them permanent. So there it is in plain print. Even the temporary measures, there is a view to make them permanent. And embedding a long-term shift to active travel as we move from restart to recovery. I'll read that sentence again. Authorities should monitor and evaluate any temporary measures they install with a view to making them permanent and embedding a long-term shift to active travel as we move from restart to recovery. Let's go to the second part of the sentence, and embedding a long-term shift. Embedding meaning forming new habits, getting you to behave differently, to think differently, and to obey your masters, who have all the authority of a sausage. Embedding in your mind and your habits a long-term shift to active travel. They want to completely change the way you live. Well, they're doing it already. Long-term shift to active travel. Walking and cycling. Presumably not even using public transport. I don't think they want you to use public transport. As we move from restart to recovery. As we move, what is this? As we move from restart to recovery. Access will still be required for other activities in the road, particularly street works, maintenance and other highway works, which will need to be balanced with work to reallocate road space to active travel. I mean, if this is not just it's not just that they want to pedestrianise some parts of the towns and cities. That's not the case. They want to reorganise everything. Want to restructure our cities and our towns and make them other than what they were before. Street works and maintenance activity should carry on, as they will be essential to getting the economy going again. So the economy needs to be going again. This is a plain statement. The economy has stopped. Use of the Street Manager digital service will help to plan and coordinate works. Depending on the measures they are installing, authorities will also need to consider access for blue badge holders, deliveries and other essential services as appropriate. Authorities should consult with the local chiefs of police and emergency services to ensure access is maintained when needed, for example, the roads that are closed to motor traffic. They should also work with local businesses to ensure changes reflect their needs, particularly around access to premises. The public sector equality duty still applies, and in making any changes to their road networks, authorities must consider the needs of disabled people and those with other protected characteristics. I point out that having certain people with protected characteristics is the opposite of equality. Equality means that no one has protected characteristics, that everyone is equally protected in terms of their characteristics. Doesn't make a blind bit of difference in terms of equality what category or categories a person belongs to. This sort of absurd notion, this false equality, we must treat it. Doesn't mean equality. You don't treat everyone the same. That's not what equality is. Anyhow, that's probably a topic for another video. Accessibility requirements apply to temporary measures as they do to permanent ones. So that's that. I know it's taken nearly an hour to pass all that, but I think this is so important. If I'd known about this in May, I might have. Well, I don't think I certainly don't remember reading this in May. I would perhaps have gone through it then. But something extraordinarily bizarre is going on, as is obvious. It wasn't obvious when this all began. They want to change the road layouts. They want to embed active travel. They want the new world. They actually say the new world. And they possibly rely on people not reading these things because they are written in this sort of